Hey, this week on the show, we're talking about prayer. That's right. It's a new year.
New year.
Resolutions. I told you last week, bringing my prayer life into my health and wellness fitness life.
Yep.
But I want to talk best practices, what you like to do, what works for you in your prayer life.
Yeah.
What your thoughts around how you model prayer. We can talk about public prayer. Anyway, it's a prayer episode.
It's a prayer episode. So what do you want? What do you want to talk about first? You want to talk about like personal?
Yeah, I want to talk about your prayer life, Keith.
Okay. I like to pray alone. Like nobody in the room.
Yep.
Everybody's been. I usually do it at the end of the day. So the kids are in bed.
Do you ever get show tunes in your head when people say the words to them? Because you're like, I don't want to be in the room. And I'm like, in the room where it happens, the room where it happens.
What show is that from?
It's Hamilton.
I haven't seen Hamilton.
Oh, man.
So
okay. Anyway.
Sorry. I'm not on the new musical list.
No, sorry. I will.
Show tune, musical.
I have lots of them that do that.
I can do some old school ones.
Like Les Miserables. I'm always like, one day more.
Anyway, so yeah, I'll usually go downstairs, or like maybe Shauna will go to bed. My wife will go to bed first. She likes to play on her phone for an hour or so before she goes to bed, and sometimes I'll tell you what. It's a question / maybe a theological conversation we can have. Does praying just inside of your head count?
Yeah.
Does it?
I think so. I don't know.
Does it?
I think so.
Okay. I mean, that's my thing. It's because sometimes it's out loud and sometimes it's just
the scripture
in my
tells us
head.
to pray without ceasing, right? So that would be awkward if y'all noisy.
You just kept talking.
I mean, if you did it verbally.
Yeah. I just sometimes I just kind of in my head, and sometimes I'm
going to say my
stuff
answer,
out loud.
my hard definitive answer is in your head counts. Out loud has no bearing on validity.
Okay. All right.
Sometimes there are lots of people who don't have
I say the wrong thing in my head. Then I would have said out loud, right? So I'm very strict about not praying for things for myself.
Okay.
Right? Like I wouldn't, if I've got I'm just going to be totally menial with this, but if I got a headache, I'm not going to be like, God, please take this headache away from me. Right? Like that's not for me. That's not what I want to interact with my God. Right? It's just always asking for things, right? And never giving things or asking for things for others. So I tend to not do the same thing for others either. I tend to not ask for someone else's pain to be taken away, right? Or so them be given something, I tend to just, if I ask for anything, it's the feeling of connectedness with God, right? Like I think that's more impactful to me than trying to ask for something directly. So, I'll ask for God to be with people and to love them and show them His love, right? That kind of thing, rather than a direct outcome.
Yeah, and I think using theological or churchy words would be like supplication, would be like the asking for. In prayer, asking Jesus, Holy Spirit to intercede.
Right.
Intercessory prayer would be that.
Yeah. Now, I'm not saying that I've never not done that. I just try not to, right?
So do you keep a list? Do you keep a list of stuff you're praying for? Do you get off on some tangent? Do you just try to go where
I just kind of go where
where
my mind goes. A lot of it's a daily thing, right? So it's it's what happened in the day, or what I'm maybe thinking about for tomorrow or the next week or whatever. I don't really write it down and kind of like, oh, I need to pray for this, 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 and this. I guess I'm not that structured.
Well, I'm wondering. All right, hot take.
Hot take.
I think we're all so different personality-wise and strengths-wise, right? Bringing in the strengths. I believe that's how our prayer life should operate. It should mimic how we operate.
Yeah, but I would argue
so there's super
for me though.
I know, but there's super structured people that make lists and write everything down, and that's going to be the most effective for them, prayer life wise. Whereas me, I'm spontaneous. I'm whimsical. Don't write things. I write a lot of stuff down and then lose it and don't go back to it. And it's
yeah. I find that I'm less analytical. I'm more emotional when I pray. So most of my talent themes, if people listening don't know, are very analytical based, right? So strategic and that kind of stuff. And I find that I try not to be that way, in relationships with people, much less God, right? I try not to be strategic in my building a relationship with somebody, just because like that's not, I don't know, that's not the way the world should work. But, I think that, what's interesting, because also I think that you have to come at prayer with some kind of emotional basis. Otherwise it's very difficult to experience anything with it, right? If you're not coming at it with some emotions and listening and feeling, then I find it, for myself, it's very difficult to receive anything from God at that point, right? Like, I'm not saying that God comes and talks to me, right? But like, if I'm worried about something and I come with that worry, then, at times I can feel better at the end of it, right? But if I'm just coming at him with, I've got to do X, Y, Z, and I'm really stressed out about it, but I'm not really feeling that stress, I find that I don't get the same reaction that I would otherwise.
It's not as experiential.
Yeah, it's not as experiential. So you really have to do that. I also find that, and I'm sure a lot of people do this too, but I also find that in worship, on Sunday, when you're feeling that moment, that's also a prime time for me to pray, right? It could be during a song. It could not saying that you shouldn't listen to all of the sermon, but sometimes, your mind drifts off for a little bit, right? Because you're feeling something in the moment, right? Something was said, you're like, oh.
Well, you can always go back.
Yeah, you can always watch it again. Yeah. Or you're like me, you get to hear it 3 times on Sunday, so I can always listen to it again. But, so like those are the times that I think it's good to stop and take that moment and pray, is when you're really feeling it. When you're feeling the worry or when you're feeling the joy, right? I think a lot of people come to God and pray when they're worried or they're scared or they're anxious. But I would say half of my prayers are when I'm happy, when I'm content in life, and
that's where we're going. Okay, so here's my question. Prayer is such a wide umbrella, right?
Yeah.
Like, so for me, if I take scripture like pray without ceasing, and I think of it, well, then you're in a conversation, continual conversation with God, right? So all your internal processes you have is this internal conversation with God. Well, that for me couldn't be more casual, right? That conversation, that relational, continuous prayer can't be formal in your prayer life. It's got to be casual. if you're praying without ceasing and you're coming at it with a formal templated prayer approach, I don't know. I don't even know what that could look like. So I have this interesting. Such a wide net. So my internal dialogue and conversation with God doesn't follow a templated structural prayer of like the adoration, the adoring, proclaiming the grandness of God, then doing confession, and then going into Thanksgiving, and then bringing requests. That's so maybe what I'm saying is, I feel if your relationship, is it possible that both can be true?
Okay, I have a really great analogy.
Okay.
Love
analogies.
This is going to be good. I hope.
I have a good analogy for you on Sunday too, by the way.
You ever go to dinner with a friend?
Yeah.
And you don't go with an agenda. You just like, hey, let's go have dinner, right?
Yeah.
Let's have lunch.
Lunch with a friend today.
Lunch with a friend, right? You go have lunch. Hey, how's it going? How you doing? You kind of start off some formalities. How's life? Hey, last time we talked, you're going through this. Like, how's it going? But like, you just go off on tangents all the time, and then eventually you're like, oh shoot, it's been 2 hours, and they want our table, right?
Right.
Okay. You ever go to lunch with a boss that's not your friend?
That has an agenda. And a notebook,
maybe.
and a list of things?
No,
Okay.
let's not pretend like that. But they're just like, you got done with a meeting or something, and you're like, hey, the boss is like, hey, let's go to lunch.
Okay.
Okay, so you go to lunch. Is that like going to lunch with a friend?
No.
Why? Because you're sitting there, you're thinking about what you're going to say. Do you talk business? Do you not talk business? Do you, maybe you have an agenda. Maybe there's something you want to get out of this boss and like gossip, rumor talk. Maybe there's changes in the company going on. You want to take that moment to like, get some real insight or something, right? You go with an agenda.
Okay.
Okay. Praying with God can be like that. You're going to go to lunch with a friend, or you're going to go to lunch with a boss.
Wow.
And I would say, to your point, it's not bad to go to lunch with a friend and be like, oh, I need to ask my friend how they're doing with their new job, right? Like, I want to make sure to have time to talk about that. Okay. But you don't go there with some ulterior motive or agenda or like, we got to talk about this, and this. And if, like we can't just have a lull in the conversation so we can talk about the weather or we can talk about that. You know what I mean? Like you don't do that with a friend. You just know you're going to have a good time. Right. And I look at my prayer life with God as like that. It's more of an in the moment, never scripted, like I'm not going to sit an hour before and be like, what am I going to pray about tonight? I just kind of like let it go. And I would argue that God knows what you're going to pray about anyways, right? So you might as well just come at it from that emotional standpoint, and just say what's on your mind.
And I think it's perspectives because, and it's not that it's the question. It's a question for for everybody to ponder. Like, what's your level of formality with God, and can it be super casual? Because I'm this really casual person who tries, like in all my relationships, to be as informal as possible.
Yeah.
Right. But I know that's not it for everybody. All right, so here's an analogy for you with kids, and you're trying to teach kids to be respectful of authority, respectful of
their teachers,
and law enforcement, and respect and authority, right? So you're teaching kids to do that. Well, you don't want a teacher rolling up in first grade with their teacher and be like, "Sup, bro?"
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, buddy. Like, slow your roll
Or like
there.
when your kids like know way too much about the teacher.
Yeah, or they
They
just
come home, they're like, oh, Miss Such and Such's, dog, they went on a walk for 2 hours yesterday and they found a turtle and they got the turtle and they're like, what did you learn at school?
No, I'm talking more about being too.
I look at it like a coach.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
On a sports team, you can be friendly with your coach, but at the end of the day, they're your coach.
And
they're going to make you run. They're going to make you hurt.
And you still call him coach.
And you still call him
and
coach.
you call him coach.
Whatever.
But you call him coach.
Yeah. You don't call him dude.
Yeah.
What's up, dude?
What's up, dude? Bro?
What's up, dude?
Right.
Ready to do it today, bro. Yeah. Yeah. I don't.
Okay, so that's got what? Can Jesus be your bro?
I mean, I would say yeah. I don't.
Yeah, we have a triune God.
I think
3 parts in one.
I think the problem with some analogies is that it's very hard to you're trying to make a connection with something that doesn't really have an equal, right?
Of course.
Right. So it's very difficult. Like, because then I think about, well, like my father, right? Or like my friends, and when I've witnessed other people with their fathers, some people like, hey, bro, like what's going on, and then some people like super formal with their fathers, right? So, and that ranges. So like I was trying to think of that in my head, but I think it depends
does it
on
range with maturity?
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. I think it's really what you get out of it. Right. I don't want to be prescriptive to anybody else. I think for some people having a format of prayer helps them stay focused. Right. Like I said before, I can go off on all kinds of tangents. Right. And sometimes that's not helpful because I'm not focused on the things within my world. I go off on this tangent and I'm there for an hour. Right.
Have you ever participated in a prayer vigil?
No.
Signed up for the time slot. So, I'm like micro of dirty jobs, right? Like,
yeah.
I'll be like, okay, we're doing the prayer vigil thing. I might as well take I'll take the worst one.
2 a.m. to 3 a.m.
What's the worst spot?
Yeah.
I got it. It'll be, like if I'm going to do this, I'm not going to do it from a, let me be strategic about this.
Yeah, or after dinner.
Yeah.
In between lunch and snack time.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, no, we'll just to 2 a.m. Here we go.
Yeah.
2 to 2:30, right?
Sure.
Man, that's hard.
Because you're tired.
Or no,
like,
you even have
you
this
just, sleep and then you wake up.
That's where it's like you got to be strategic, and there's this goal to keep the prayer going.
Yeah.
To keep the communal prayer moving. So you have your script that has your you can use it, you don't have to use it, but it has it kind of has different bullet points to focus on with your prayer. And I think your internal voice, I don't know if it's like listening to an audiobook on like 1.5 speed or whatever, but like your internal voice definitely goes faster.
Yeah, then you can spit it out.
Your internal voice is so much faster than your speaking.
That's how you go off on tangents.
Yeah.
Because your internal voice, and then you start thinking about something your internal voice said, and then you're like, now speaking your internal voice, and you're on tangent.
Anyway, I recommend it. Next prayer vigil opportunity you have, sign up for it.
Sign up for the 2 to 2:30 slot. AM.
Pick
Well, I can be awake by then. Like, I'll just go to sleep early and I'll be wide awake.
Just,
I was thinking about though. It's hard for me in the world of praying. Is when we have you were talking about a scripted. When you have a scripted prayer, it's hard for me to feel it.
yeah.
So like when we do the prayer walk around the schools, right? you got this prayer, then this prayer, then this prayer, then this prayer, right? It's hard for me if I'm doing part of it or if I'm just in the group listening. It's hard for me to do that and like feel it and feel a connection or whatever. But at the same time, I recognize that we want people to, I don't know, be comfortable in those situations to pray. And because the other part is, the hard part is praying in front of other people.
Well, and that's where this, just being real with this conversation, as a lay person, but it is a lay pastor, as a person that participates in worship leadership, as a person who has the opportunity to pray with and for people. There's lots of different ways and styles, and I sometimes wonder, well, am I with public prayer? Am I too casual?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do I need to make this more formal? But I think to your point, there can be something to the point of formality that maybe makes people, someone's completely new to faith could feel at a distance to it.
Yeah.
My family, we've recently made this change from, we had the same meal prayer. We'd recite.
Yeah. I know families that they have like it's every day is a different one, but it's always scripted. Like it's like a calendar.
Ours is the same one. The kids memorized it before they were making all their words. They were mumbling it right along with us.
God is good. God is great. Let us thank Him for your food.
Yeah, and I even think there's like some improper English in ours because it's like spilled over from my childhood, and I just how I remembered it.
Yeah.
And I've always used it. So yeah, so we've recently transitioned to now we're like, okay, we're moving on to the next step, guys. We're rotating. So
yeah. We're kind of in the same situation.
So it's been cool. It's been cool to rotate around the table. Luckily, we've got a round table. It makes the rotation easy. We go clockwise.
We rotate who goes every day is a different person. And our kind of prescriptive is we try to just try to be thankful for the food, for the family, and then I hope Sean has a good day at work. I hope the kids have a good day at school. And that's it. And it worked out well for probably a couple years, but you can tell people the kids are getting a little like, I hope Penny doesn't steal my stuff anymore. Like it's like, okay, all right. Like it's like a jab session at each other. So we might have to change it up. But
they're getting a little too informal,
a little too informal with it. So, but Parker gets involved, which I think is great. Like a little 3-year-old going, God, thank you, Mama. It's like, dude, it's great. It's great every time.
Well, buddy. How we doing?
We're good. I think we're good. I think that's a good start. I think we should do another round of this, another couple, because there's quite a bit.
There's a lot.
There's a lot to unpack.
It's easy to come back to. So we're gonna call this like prayer episode 1.
Episode 1. Who knows when episode 2 might be? Next week you'll have to come and listen. It could be 2 weeks from now.
No, I think we pick it up next week.
Okay. Well, no, don't tell them that. Then
it's a teaser. Prayer episode 2. We're gonna be 2 weeks in. We're going to be 2 weeks into, because we didn't even get into this, Mitch is bringing prayer life into his health and fitness life. So
and then week 3, maybe health and fitness.
We're going to work on praying away the cravings in the new year.
I don't think that's going to work. Well, this is Keith.
This is Mitch.
Thanks for tuning in to the Layman's Term Show, and we'll see you next week.
Have a good one.